Hey guys, sorry about getting the stream started late. I got stuck watching Cobra Kai on Netflix. Uh, I didn't watch Cobra Kai when it was on YouTube. It originally was picked up by YouTube, um, but now it's on Netflix. There's the two seasons on Netflix, and just got kind of sucked in there. Uh, I was just checking it out, and man, it is really good. I'll do a review on it, uh, maybe in another day or so. But yeah, I really is enjoyed it. I got sucked into it, so yeah, I started the stream late. So anyway, let's go over the updates for the pandemic here. Let's get that off to the side. So basically, I don't know if you guys watched the press conference by the mayor. So basically, he submitted to the governor. I think the governor gave him his support to extend the stay-at-home order for another 2 weeks. So it was set to expire on Thursday, and the numbers did go down. Um, what are we're at like 100, right? Um, let me get the let me find out what the count is. I think it was like 100. It's pretty low. Uh, mm, Sorry about this. Again, like I got just sucked up in watching Cobra Kai. It's got all the characters, from or not all the characters, but it had the main characters from the original Karate Kid. It's really sad that Pat Morita is not there. It would have been really great to have him make an appearance in that show. He does make an appearance somewhat, in photos and stuff, but it's really good. It's not what you think, and I really really enjoy what they're doing with that series. Um, where's the latest? Uh, was it Hawaii COVID 19 something, right? Here we go. Dashboard. Let's look at the dashboard. Um, oh no, yesterday was 100 something. So today, yeah, so today was 66. So it's definitely gone down from. But again, we just came off of Labor Day. Uh, so and then a 3 day weekend where everybody was not doing anything, right? I think as life kind of gets back to normal and people are starting to go around and do their business, numbers might go up. So tomorrow's numbers might go up. I don't know, um, but that's what I would suspect. But yeah, 66. So that's really good. Um, we're still, I guess they still haven't updated the numbers for the hospital beds, and again, the hospital beds is what we're really concerned about as far as the lockdown. So that's why he extended the stay at home because it does seem to be working. Uh, Now there's a difference in this is just my personal opinion. There's a difference between bringing down the number and then keeping the number down, right? So yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer if you tell everybody to stay at home. There's no way for this disease to um, spread. But at some point, like you got to let people out, right? You have to let people go about their life, and we still don't really have an answer for that. So I don't know what they're gonna do. They extended the stay-at-home order for 2 more weeks, but um, they're going to reopen the parks, the beaches, um, I think hiking trails too, um, on September 10th. But you got to be by yourself. So the impression I get from that is they want to open the parks, but they don't want you to use it. They want to open the beaches, but they don't want you to use it. So it's again these mixed messages that the government gives us doesn't really help, I don't think, because we saw what happened when they do this kind of, I hate to say it, but like this kind of half-ass measures. Um, you cannot open something. You cannot say something is open and not expect people to use it, right? Or to do it. So you can open the beaches and you can put these kinds of restrictions out there, like you can only go swimming by yourself, but nobody's gonna go swimming by themselves, right? Um, like, oh, you can go hiking, but you have to go hiking by yourself. Well, nobody's gonna go hiking by themselves. And if the parking lots are open, if the parks are open, the beaches are open, people are gonna go to the beaches. So, I mean, I'm hoping, we all hope for the best, but we know what's going to happen, right? Um, we we're still under the stay-at-home order. Businesses are still closed. Uh, most people are supposed to be working from home. Uh, I think like traveling, you're supposed to only travel for essential, you know, reasons. But at the same time, the beaches, the parks, and the hiking trails are open. So I think they got enough feedback from people questioning why outdoor activities are not permitted when, again, like there's no data that says outdoor activities is a mode of transmission for the disease. So I know that's just my personal opinion on this. It's kind of a half-ass measure. Um, and I think we kind of know what's going to happen for the next 2 weeks, right? People are going to go to the beach, people are going to go to the park, and people are going to go hiking, and they're not going to go by themselves. And that's I mean, how do you enforce that? I don't even know how you would enforce that. Um, right? I mean, people still. I guess it'll prevent large groups from gathering. I mean, you still can't reserve a picnic spot. You still can't camp. You still can't get a permit for camping. Um, but really, like how we go hiking, even if we were to go in a group, how is a law enforcement officer supposed to determine that you're hiking alone or you're in a group, right? I mean, there's like Cocoa Head Trail, you see people going up and down the stairs, right? Um, how do you know like who's with who? And so it's just kind of silly. And if you're at the beach, it's the same way. I mean, you got tons of people in the water, which is totally legal. Um, and then you have people sitting on the beach, and how do you know who's with who? Um, especially if they just kind of spread themselves out a bit. Um, which I don't know, maybe that's the intention, but why don't you just say that? Why don't you just make that the rule? And just say like if you're spotted on the beach sitting within the 6 foot distance, then you get cited. I don't understand why you would do a you must be alone. I mean, even if you said like 5 people, I don't know if there's much of a difference between saying 5 people can go to the beach versus you got to be by yourself. I just don't understand how you're going to enforce that. So that's just my opinion. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully the number stays down, but I'm not holding my breath on it. 66 people is kind of questionable, and I don't know if we can take a look at the number of tests. So I mean, 666 people, there were only 774 tests performed with a positive rate of 8.5%. That's a high percentage, right? I mean, the previous day it was low, it was like 3% or something, but you were up, I don't know, 2,000 tests or 1,200 tests or something like that. Um, so realistically, I would just double that number. Like instead of 166, I mean, you're over 100, right? Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna do. We're still in the. I think we're still doing surge testing, right? And from what I heard on the news, the Aloha Stadium one was the turnout was really poor. So I think people were just, doing Labor Day weekend stuff and not necessarily going out to get tested. So, I mean, again, whenever you see a low number of tests, you're going to see a low number of positives. But that's not a realistic picture of, you know, the disease in Hawaii. So anyway, that's what it. I mean, it's great news. At least I can go to the beach. At least I can go to the park without fear of getting cited. And then they as far as like opening up businesses, we still don't know when that's going to happen yet. It probably won't happen for the next 2 weeks. So I don't, we'll see what happens. As far as business and the economy is concerned, we're still in lockdown, um, which to me makes sense, right? Again, if you look at the mode of transmission, the vast majority of it is this community, which that's not clearly defined. Is that at home? Is that walking around on the street? Is that shopping malls? Is that events? I don't know what that means. But if you look at all the rest of them, it's a pretty small number, right? Like bar clubs and restaurants, there's only 11 cases. You know, um, the gyms, there's only 4 cases. So yeah, and there's nothing here that says outdoor activity. So we'll see what happens there. Um, and so that's pretty much it for this Corona update. I don't know what I don't. Let me know what you guys think. You guys can throw it in the comments. It's just it's silly, but at the same time, I'm kind of happy about it that they're reopening. The parking lot. The parking is a huge deal, right? So at least the parking lots are open. The restrooms are going to be open. Um, you can sit on the beach. It's just silly. Like you can't sit on the beach. So at least you can sit on the beach. Um, okay. So that's my little rant about the COVID status right now. Uh, one thing that so what I wanted to discuss today was based on a conversation I had with a couple of friends, and we were talking about uh, like whether or not there's going to be a baby boom. Like whenever there's hurricanes, there's power outages. Um, there's like a natural disaster or something, and people are stuck in their homes with no power, right? Uh, Usually there's a little uptick in the birth rates. Um, so like this pandemic has been going on for like 6 months. So I would think, one would think that there might be a baby boom happening, right? I mean, that would be your natural inclination. Uh, but then after thinking about it some more, usually like the baby booms happen when there's, like when the economy is doing well, and there's a baby bust usually when the economy is not doing so well, regardless of natural disasters or something like that. So if like if a hurricane damage creates like long lasting damage, the economy is affected and you might see a dip in birth rates. But if the economy is still good and it's not long lasting and there's not much of a economic impact, um, then maybe there's a baby boom, a slight baby boom, right? So basically, like the last baby boom, right, the baby boomers, that was between what 1946 and 1964, and this is according to Wikipedia. Wikipedia, and that was like 75 million births, right, in that time period. So 1946, 1964. And what's interesting about that is, so a lot of them are kind of in retirement age now. They were the largest living population for a while, but the millennials uh, are forecasted to surpass the baby boomers as the baby boomers get old and they start dying off. The millennials is a big baby boom, right? And that's because of the economy. The economy was doing really, really well. People were having more children. Um, so the original baby boom was attributed to the end of World War II. So there was a baby bust during the war, but then when everybody came back and there was a revival of the economy, um, a lot of people started having families right away, and people had, people were, you know, giving birth. Um, so a lot of it has to do with the economy, right? More so than the war. Like if the war had resulted in a very poor economy, maybe they wouldn't have been such a big baby boom. Um, so the government also promoted uh, starting a family, right? So there was like GI bills, GI benefits. And at the time, again, you're talking about, what is this, 1940? Like, so that's like the 1950s. People were having more children. I think nowadays the average family is like 2.5 kids. I don't know where you get half a kid, but you get 2.5 kids. But back then it was probably, like 4 or 5 kids, right? Or 3 or 4 kids. Um, so that's a significant increase in babies. Um, the other thing too is the average age for women to have children went down. They were having children younger at a younger age. Um, so throughout their life, they could have more children, right? Um, I think it says here the average age was like 20 during the baby boomers. Moving to the suburbs as opposed to living in the city was more affordable. The suburbs saw a huge explosion. A lot of people decided to move into those areas to start. It was more conducive for starting a family as opposed to living in the city. Um, and so people had more kids, right? Um, so I think we have here. So that's like the baby boomer time, right? And again, I think it has to do with more the economy. Let's make this bigger. So there are some articles out here as I was kind of looking around, uh, saying that, hey, maybe there's going to be a baby bust. So this is Brookings. This is what is this, a university or Brookings? I don't know. Uh, but basically, they're saying that it could result in a long baby bust, and a lot of it has to do with the economic recession, right? And that makes sense. But they're expecting it to be like 300,000 to 500,000 fewer births next year. Um, and I think there's some good reasons why we can expect that. Um, Not just because of the economy. I mean, the economy is a big thing, but just practical reasons why people would not be having children this year due to the pandemic, right? So let's see. They say that the majority of births in the next several years will either be firstborn children or unplanned pregnancies, right? So the planning of building your family is, people are putting it off, and that makes sense. And there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense, right? They say, according to researchers, the recession between 2007 and 2009 and past pandemics like the Spanish flu in 1918 uh, has led to a sizable decrease in birth rates. And I think, um, I don't know, there was a kind of an interesting graph. Um, thought I had this loaded, but if you go to baby boom on Wikipedia, there's this there's this graph here. My head might be blocking it, but basically, um, I don't know if I can pull this over here. There's this graph here, and you can kind of see like these big dips. And so this orange section is the baby boomer generation. But then you kind of see like this big decrease, and then there's a couple other spikes, and then it kind of levels out here. Um, so that's kind of interesting. Um, and usually, if you look at the big dips, those are like poor economic times, and so that's they correlate that with the decrease or the baby busts, right? So that yeah, I mean, I find that kind of interesting, and there's some practical reasons, right? So in this article from Quartz, it says the pandemic is making women reconsider when and if to have babies, right? And that makes sense. Jobs are scarce, huge sections of the economy are shut down, and a deadly virus continues to spread around the world. Um, like even just having sex is during this time period. You would think like you're at home, there's nothing to do, you can't go to the movies, you can't go to the clubs, you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to shows. There's nothing to do but stay home and make babies. Well, the problem with that is that we're living in very stressful times, and stress and anxiety does not make for people wanting to have sex, right? It makes people feel insecure, um, and even the thought of having a child, if you're losing your job, or businesses are shut down, growing your family all of a sudden, you kind of have to think about it, right? It's not that we don't have that luxury, um, like when things are going well, and we have our high paying jobs, unemployment's low, everything's going great. um, yeah, we can grow our families, but when things are not going good, we kind of have to think about that, right? The other thing is, like, do you want to bring a newborn into the world, in a world where there's a disease, and we don't know if the disease is ever going to go away. And then you have like this whole civil unrest thing. um, I think it makes a lot of people reconsider whether or not now is a good time to have children. So there's other things too, like if you currently have children, uh, there's issues with health, safety, employment, business opportunities, education, and childcare, right? Like we don't know what's happening with the schools. Um, all of those things might play a part in your decision to have another child. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to think about, and I don't know how this is going to play out. But if you look at kind of like the past trends, it does make it seem like we're going to have a lower birth rate this time next year, or for several years if we don't get control over this pandemic, right? So here's some stats here. U.S. women are changing their fertility preferences because of COVID-19, right? Propor- Proportion of respondents who now want to delay childbearing or have fewer children. So 34% want to have fewer children, right? White people, 28%. Um, you know, Black, Hispanics. I don't know about this straight and queer. I don't, I don't understand how that number. I just don't get it. I don't know how that number, like straight. I get. Queer. I don't know. I don't know how that number, like 46%. You know, is gonna change their childbearing decisions. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to explain that to me. But yeah, see, it says here during times of economic stress, the birth rates drop, and this happens not only in America, in other countries as well. So yeah, I mean that's really interesting. I was kind of surprised about that. Um, Here's another article, Psychology Today, right? Coronavirus baby boom or baby bust. COVID-19 may reduce desire to have children while limiting contraception access. So, they talk about other pandemics and what happened with the birth rates there. So that's kind of interesting. Um, and then you kind of think about, like, okay, what does it take to, what leads up to the decision of having a child? So one thing we're kind of talking about is like dating, right? Before all of this happened, dating was like huge, like it was huge business, right? Clubs were booming, shows, activities, online dating apps and websites were making a killing. And then coronavirus happens. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people are still using dating apps, but how do you meet somebody? Like the whole point of utilizing the app, right, is a way to um, conveniently find people who you can eventually meet in person. I don't think anybody goes into online dating with the expectation that it'll just remain online, right? I mean, that could just be me. Um, but I, if I was dating online, I would think, I mean, I would go into it with the expectation that I would actually meet the person at some point. So, and there's a pretty funny article. Um, there's a pretty funny article that I kind of found on online regarding that. Um, but yeah, I mean, everybody I knew who was dating, they were dating online. Uh, and I think there was a good example like during the AIDS scare, right? And this was like in like the 90s when AIDS kind of hit a peak in the US. A lot of people were afraid of even dating. right? Much less like having sex. And I would think things would be similar today with coronavirus, especially since you have like non-symptomatic people who can transmit the disease. So, like having casual sex and multiple partners might not necessarily be that appealing in today's world. And I don't know if in the future it'll ever get back. I mean, unless they can come up with a vaccination that creates an immunity to COVID. Like I don't see why people would take that risk. I mean, you're always going to have people that are going to take that risk, but um, as a population, I don't think. I mean, I'm pretty sure the numbers will go down for people having casual sex and multiple partners. So um, that's just fear of you know catching a disease. Um, Social distancing and stay-at-home lockdowns are putting people off even online date. You know, putting off of putting people off of online dating. And there were some pretty interesting um, reports that while online dating apps are seeing heavy usage, the amount of revenue being generated by each per subscriber has actually flatlined. So, so while the apps are getting used, the companies aren't making as much money. Um, and we're seeing like some of these apps, or the majority of the apps, are actually kind of making some adaptations or changes in how they perform, how they do business. So most of these apps now have some kind of live chat or live video chat feature in there, because again they know that there's not really a way for you to physically meet the person, and that was the whole point of these dating apps, is to kind of break the ice, introduce you to another person, and then hopefully set you up so that you can actually meet the person, you know, like face to face. But you can't do that. So at least now there's a way where you can actually meet them in real time, and it's not necessarily face to face, but it's close, right? It's like doing Zoom meetings and stuff like that. Um, I think dating will change. We'll definitely see another change in how people date. Um, I don't know. Yeah, like I said, like casual dating. I think people will be more serious. Um, there are some studies also showing that people are spending more time communicating. So remember the whole like swipe left kind of thing, uh, or using things like Tinder just for quick hookups in person, right? Is to find a hookup so that you can meet them in person. Well, now I think more quality type relationships are being formed um, utilizing these apps, whereas before people were just using it to just kind of browse and find people, right? And then leave the app. So they're staying on the app longer, and having more meaningful communication and relationships through the apps. So that's kind of interesting, right? Um, Here's another article on today's parent. I'll put all the links in the description. I'll post it. Um, oh, here's this article. So this is in Teen Vogue, and I was just curious what, like, okay, from a young person's point of view, how are they dating, during this whole thing? So this is back in July, and so this is written, I believe it's a young person, right? And it's kind of an interesting thing. So they have Tinder's passport feature, hoping to find a nice, I guess she wanted to find a foreign person because she didn't want to stay in America because she thought, all hell was breaking loose and stuff. Well, she ended up meeting somebody in the US, 500 miles away. Um, and they kind of had they hit it off. She really liked him. They eventually um, they couldn't they couldn't see each other. I mean, they were still kind of far away, but a trip kind of happened where she was able to go down and see him, and they did they had their little date, and they had a good time, and they she thought things were going good, um, but in the end, uh, this guy Topher, I don't know if she's using real names here, but he was also seeing another person, because again they were like 500 miles away, so most of their communication was just texting, going back and forth online, and the person I think was lived closer to him, so it was kind of a natural thing that he would choose to pursue that person. um, and it was kind of a bummer. I think in pre-pandemic days, he might have just kept it going, right, and do the multiple thing until he was ready to make a decision. But I think given the circumstances, uh, you kind of have to make a choice, right? I mean, it's not like you can do anything, right? It's not like you can casually go out and date people and live it up, right? I mean, you can't go anywhere. You can't go out to restaurants. You can't go out to the clubs. Um, you can't go out in groups with friends, and stuff like that. The whole way we dated in the past is changed, and it might be changed forever. So I don't know. So then, and she was kind of bummed about it. And normally she says she wouldn't be kind of bummed about it because she would just move on. But because of COVID, um, she was very selective, right? She's more selective now. So the fact that she found somebody, um, and then having to go back and try to find another person, um, and not just date around again casually, that was kind of a bummer for her. So I thought that was really interesting, and this article is kind of interesting. It made me think of things I normally didn't think about, for young people who are trying to date, right? But let's say you meet the person, right? Somehow you're single, you meet that person this year, like during the summer, you meet somebody and you hit it off, and you're like, okay, I want to get married, right? Uh, the wedding industry has taken a huge hit, um, like a huge hit, right? Uh, there's an article, and this is in April, so this is kind of early on, and I don't think much has changed really since then. Hawaii marriage registrations are down 82% from the same time last year. 82%. That's crazy, right? So I think a lot of people are putting off getting married even, right? And that might prevent you from having children this year, right? A lot of people want to wait until they get married before they have children. Um, and if you're putting off your wedding, that means you're putting off, starting your family. So, I mean, it's like, really, should you get married during a pandemic? Um, I think so. Yeah, I think so. If you're in love and you had it planned out, I think you should still get married, right? Because, and you know, marriage is so that you can be legally joined together. It represents a lot of things. If you're religious, it has religious implications, and a lot of it has to do with being in love, right? And it doesn't being in love doesn't change, even though you're in a pandemic or, like, you know, economic constraints, right? For better or for worse, right? Richer or poorer. So, yeah, I think you should still get married, but how you get married and what your idea of your wedding is going to be is not going to be like how you thought it was going to be when you were a kid, right? Like your childhood dream wedding, you kind of have to toss it out the door, right? I mean, I think this year at least, for a lot of people who are planning to get married, the days of having these crazy, and Hawaii is a little bit different than the rest of the country, right? Like we have huge weddings, right? Like five, 600 people on your guest list. I mean, to me, that's just ridiculous. But like you invite the whole community to your wedding. If you're planning on going on exotic destinations, honeymoons, all of that got wiped out with the pandemic. Um, like a lot of people. Well, one good thing is like you're saving a lot of money because a lot of people would take out loans to go get married. Some weddings might cost more than a down payment of a house, and it definitely makes more sense to put a good down payment on a house than to pay that money, for one day. I know that's not a romantic thing to say, but practically speaking, I think that makes more sense. Um, but uh, people are gonna continue to fall in love. They're gonna meet people. They're gonna want to get married, and they should still get married, right? Um, but I think a good indicator of this is if you look at your social media feed, like your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, how many wedding photos have you seen in the last, several months, right? I remember last year, like there's lots of weddings. Like every year, it seems like there's lots of weddings. I'm like, really, do I know that many people who haven't gotten married yet? And granted, at my age, it's dwindling. Like most people are married, but maybe they're on their second marriage. I don't know. But yeah, this year, I haven't seen any. I don't think I've seen any actually this year. I've seen a lot of anniversary photos, um, but yeah, I haven't seen any wedding. I don't think I know anybody who's gotten married this year. Yeah, I think most people are just putting off their weddings, so until things turn around. So yeah, um, the nice thing I think though is people who do get married during this time. Um, all weddings are special, but really a lot of times it's filled with a lot of fluff, right? I mean, I don't know. I think personally, I kind of enjoy the more intimate weddings. Where there's fewer people. You get to actually spend time with the bride and the groom and their family. Uh, have a few drinks. Don't necessarily get plastered, but you kind of teetering on the edge, and it's safe, right? And everybody has a good time. Whereas the large weddings, like people just get plastered, and people, like it kind of gets out of control, and it's not as intimate. Um, I know it can be very stressful for the bride and for the groom, for that matter, because if the bride gets upset, that's going to affect the groom, right? I think weddings nowadays, for those people who are still getting married during this pandemic, the weddings are smaller. It's a smaller group, so it's definitely more intimate. It's probably more meaningful. I think a lot more thought um, is put into how, like how the wedding is organized. Um, and yeah, so I mean, there's some pluses and minuses. The wedding industry as a whole, it's like if you're a photographer, if you're a wedding planner, if you're a florist, man, all of those guys, caterer, all of those guys are, all of those businesses are taking a huge hit. And especially in Hawaii, when we had a lot of foreign um, couples getting married here in Hawaii. I mean, Hawaii was a destination, like a wedding destination, right? And so all of those things are gone. Um, so that definitely affects businesses, right? Um, so these are the kind of things that, like we were discussing. And I mean, you can just branch out into all kinds of other aspects of why you think there's going to be a baby boom or a baby bust due to this pandemic. But I think those were the kind of the main things, like dating, weddings, um, like anxiety, like whether or not, even if you are married and you have children, you might be stressed out and you might not want to, have more children. You might not want to even, I mean, they're saying a lot of people are getting divorced during this pandemic, um, because of, all the stress and anxiety that's going on. So there's a lot of things to think about. Um, it's good and bad, and it's more of a mental exercise for me to predict like what might happen in the future as far as the birth rates. We've seen like in Japan, when they've been having kind of a slow growth in population. So women are getting married later. They're Some are not even getting married at all. Um, they're having fewer and fewer children. I think there's a government incentive program where people get paid for having children. Kind of opposite to like China, when they were overpopulated and you are actually punished if if you did have too many children. Um, and that, America could see something like that too. There's I think a definite consequences for for having a baby bust. If the population drops, there's definitely like economic consequences. Like the workforce shrinks. Um, there's all kinds of reasons, or all kinds of consequences for having fewer children. Um, so, but we won't know what's going to happen. It just depends on um, whether or not there's a solution for this disease. And it might not be a vaccination. It could be just some method of a new way of living for us, that we're able to live safely while having this virus. So I don't know. Are you planning on having children in the next year? Like, are you married? Um, have you discussed it with your husband, with your wife? Were you planning on having children? You know, Not next year, maybe like in the next 5 years, maybe in the next 15 years. Um, and then, like, how do you feel about that now? You know, do you are you putting it off? Are you just gonna go ahead and go for it? Um, yeah, I don't know. You know, how has the pandemic and the economy affected your plans for your existing family? And for starting, for expanding or creating a new family. That those are kind of the questions like I like to ask people, and just find out, how what they're thinking. I think in times like these, family is definitely more important than ever. Again, like there's a lot of mental anxiety, there's stress, um, there's like the economic situation. If people are out of work, um, having that support group um, is important, and it's going to be your family, right? That you fall back on, that you rely on, um, whether it's your parents, whether it's um, your siblings, whether it be you know your husband, your wife, and their family, cousins, whatever. I think those relationships are more important than ever during this time. Um, you know, Going through the worst time in your life, which is happening to some of us, uh, you kind of need to be with people that you can count on, who's going to be with you through the rough times and help you through, like being unemployed, or if you contract COVID, right? Um, you know, you, you want to be with people who are going to be positive, who's going to support you, who's going to see you through it, um, make, comfort you um, in these kind of, stressful times. Uh, if you have children, and, a lot of my friends, they have children and they're spending a lot of time, a lot more time than they thought they would ever spend with their kids. But it turns out it's a good thing, right? I mean, for most of them, it's a good thing. It's they're enjoying it more than they thought they would, and it's kind of a blessing. Um, for some people, it's not. For some people, it can be, it's definitely a challenge. But for those people who, come on, life through pre COVID, right? There was so much going on in life, and we had so many options to not spend time with our family and to not spend time with our kids and stuff. And I think now, right now, you can sit at home and do homework with your kids. You can spend the weekend doing puzzles, or playing in the yard, or watching silly movies um, with your kid, instead of going golfing, or going out with your friends, or going to see a show. You got your adult things and you got your kid days. Well, now every day is a kid day, right? um, yeah, I don't know. I think definitely, from a social and economic view, baby booms and baby busts both have um, benefits and consequences, right? Um, we talked about those. Uh, we've seen the effects from you know, past years, and we should think about it and plan for the future. So, for people who are not planning, or who don't think about it, the pluses, the minuses of having a child during the pandemic. Um, I think I think putting some thought into it can kind of help you not get into trouble, right? Instead of, a lot of us are impulsive, and if we want to start a family, we'll just start a family. Well, it's sometimes putting some thought into it. Um, like, if this thing gets cleared up next year, then really, what's a year, right? Putting off having a child. I don't know if there's like astrological significance of like this is the best year to have a kid. Um, but I don't think there's going to be much of a difference if you wait a year. If this thing goes on for multiple years, now that's kind of an issue. At that point, you might as well, I don't know, if having a child is something that you always wanted to do, then I don't see why you wouldn't do it, right? Um, Government definitely needs to be prepared, and that's something that we are not seeing. I have not seen a single state or even a single country for that matter be, have some kind of a plan. And I'm pretty sure they have, scientists looking at it, they have experts looking at it, because again, there are real consequences for a decrease, a drastic decrease, or even a drastic increase in birth rate. Um, when you think about, like 20, 30 years into the future, um, and how that affects us, right? Like the baby boomers, like having that many people go, like tax the social security system, the Medicare system, uh, the healthcare system, that has an effect on everybody. And so, you know, if this kind of thing happens again, the government needs to be prepared for that, right? I mean, we're always worried about whether or not Social Security is going to get cut, if it's going to run out of money. Um, we're going to have to think about that again if there's a baby boom. And if there's a baby bust, then maybe we might have enough money, right, in the future. But then you also have to look at what the productivity of the country is if your labor force shrinks like drastically. So yeah, a government definitely needs to think about it. Businesses definitely, right? Um, a lot of businesses are were relying on the spending power of baby boomers as they hit retirement. Retirement homes were making a killing, right? There were, there were so many retirement homes. That business model kind of just exploded, and it was because there was this huge influx of people hitting retirement age, and so businesses, like different industries are affected by a drastic increase and decrease in population size. Um, so again, businesses, will have to think about that too, right? Um, Families and individuals will all need to plan for what's going to come in the future, right? The changes that are here and coming in the next months and years will affect all of our choices, right? Our beliefs and how we view the world, the way we live our life, and It'll affect us for the rest of our life. I don't think anybody at this point thinks that life will return to normal, right? I mean, before this whole pandemic started, it was like, oh, we'll just wait it out and we'll wait for things to return to normal. I think I don't think there's anybody who thinks that things are going to return to normal. So it's just a matter of figuring out how we're going to live our life moving forward. Um, how do we adapt? And if you can't adapt, if you personally can't adapt, you're gonna have a rough time, right? If businesses can't adapt, they're gonna have a rough time. And if government can't adapt, we're all gonna have a rough time. So we all have to kind of figure out how we're going to live with this virus, and um, how we view health and hygiene, and I mean lots of things, right? I mean look at work working from home. I mean, so many businesses were so against working from home, but now, like everybody's, and I don't think it's going to go back to, you know to the way it was. I think a lot of companies, a lot of big cities, you're seeing mass exoduses because cities like San Francisco that attracted people to live there and work there, these companies are now allowing people to work from home, and they're probably never going to go back to having these huge offices. They're just going to, allow people to remote work, and how they hire and stuff. It's all going to be different. So our children and our children's children, the way they work, play, and live is going to be drastically different than how we were raised and how we lived our life. So yeah, that's my thought of the day. Some things I think about, because that's all I got to do right during the pandemic. I mean, I can't even go to the beach. So yeah, I kind of think about that. Are we gonna see a baby boom or a baby bust? I'm kind of leaning more towards the baby bust. Um, but the fewer kids that you know are born during this time, or it'll be this time next year, right? Um, hey, there'll be less competition, right? They'll have more one-on-one education in the education system because there'll be fewer students. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like. Or maybe there's a huge baby boom. I could be wrong. There's a huge baby boom, and um, honestly, I don't see how that happens. But um, yeah, we could definitely see a huge increase in babies next year. But we won't know, right, until 9 months from now. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. You know, throw your thoughts in the comment section. And yeah, I mean, the whole point of this of me streaming every night is, and I was talking to my wife about it too. I can keep like just rapid fire posting on Facebook and Twitter, um, but I don't think a post is the same thing as having a discussion, and I kind of miss that. I would have these long discussions with friends and family, and there's not that much of that now. And the rapid fire posts of social media just doesn't cut it. And I don't think it's definitely not intellectually satisfying to me to have people just regurgitating things that they see online and not really like putting a lot of thought into it. Um, I don't if somebody posts something, about like, let's say, like coronavirus, and they all they do is put like one sentence, um, and attach an article. Well, I know what the author of the article is thinking, and I might infer that you agree or disagree with them, but I want to know what your thoughts are, right? And that's the whole part of communicating amongst friends and family. So that's kind of the reason why I'm doing this stream, so that my friends and my family, like I used to go see my family every weekend, and I haven't done that for months. So yeah, I mean, at least they can kind of, um, if they want to and they want to endure the torture of having uh, listened to me like my random thoughts, at least they have an opportunity to be there. And if they want to, interact, they can do that within the comments. And I would definitely recommend anybody to, I mean, you can stream on Facebook super easy, right? It's super easy to, I think there's just a live button, and, just maybe, put your thoughts down, um, and have people really interact. Because I don't think the post rapid fire post method is really, you know intellectually stimulating. I don't think it's kind of a lazy way to do it, I think, and it doesn't really communicate uh, to people what your thoughts are. Like it might communicate what one thought is, um, but context is really important in what you're, you know, how you feel about something. And maybe, a lot of times it's questions. Like you might have questions, I might have questions. um, i don't I don't know all the answers. This whole baby boomer bust thing, it kind of stemmed from a conversation that was mostly made up of questions, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen, and we're looking to the experts, and they don't know what's happening, they don't know what's going to happen. um, but somebody knows what's going to happen, right? Somebody has ideas or whatever. um, and I think the more people you hear different thoughts from, you kind of put together this a more complete picture uh, of what the future might be like, right? Or what life might be like, or what the world currently is. And so that's the reason why I'm doing that. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm gonna probably try to binge watch the rest of season one of Cobra Kai. I still need to watch episode 3 of um, Raised by Wolves. I really enjoyed that. Yesterday I did the review on episode 2. Um, Thursday, I think episode 4 comes out. I have to double check that. I'm not sure when episode 4 is supposed to come out, but I'm really enjoying that series as well. So anyway, that's it for now. And yeah, if you guys, what do you guys think about the baby? Is it going to be a baby boom or baby bust during this pandemic? Love to hear your thoughts on that. Anyway, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.